And this is what y'all been waiting for, because this is when we really get some hands-on once we learn about this. But one of the first things I want to caution you about with permanent hair color is when we do it, we've done it. Whatever's there is going to be there. We can remove some of the color, but we can never go back to what they had to start with. Even if we basically, if they had medium brown hair and we put medium brown on it. And the reason for that is because we are now mixing our color with hydrogen peroxide. And hydrogen peroxide is meant to be the oxidizing agent. And what that means to us is it gives a chemical reaction. But we want to remember about that oxidizing agent because we don't want to mix our color up and then wait on our client to get here. Because it has a time frame. Usually 35 to 45 minutes. And that time frame starts working or counting down the minute we mix hydrogen peroxide with our solution. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. Just a little bit away from being water, which is H2O. And what it does in oxidizing is as it gives up its oxygen, it turns back into water. And water is no good to us in a hair coloring service. So if you mix it up way ahead of time and set it on the counter while you drape her up and brush her out and section her off, then that hydrogen peroxide is turning into water, and it's going to be like having your product mixed with water. So it's not going to act. Not only is hydrogen peroxide the oxidizing agent, and that's the reaction that started taking place when you mixed it up, it is also a softening agent, meaning it is going to soften the hair, and it does that by raising the cuticle scales. Okay? Next, it's going to start lightening the hair, and that is why we can never go back to what they had beforehand, because now this hair has been attacked by a lightening agent. And that always brings up a question. If I am going to put her hair back to medium brown, why do I need to lighten it? It's already medium brown. It just looks dull to her. So why do I need to lighten? You don't. We didn't use hydrogen peroxide to be the lightening agent in this instance. We used it to be the oxidizing agent and the softening agent. And it does that better than anything else science has found for hair coloring. We just have to accept it's a lightening agent. Now, if we were going to take that medium brown hair and make it dark blonde, then we could understand why we had lightening agents, you know, there. But we've got to accept that it has a lightening agent. This is why we want to make it plain to our client. If you don't like this hair color, you're going to have to live with some form of it until it totally grows out and is cut off. Because what would happen with her hair if she decides she doesn't like it? You know, maybe she thinks it's too dark or too unnatural looking or too all one color, and she wants that medium brown off of her medium brown hair. When we put a color remover on it, it's going to dissolve that artificial color. In the process, it's going to also lift some of her natural pigment because it is a color dissolver. So there's another reason you can never go back. Also, you're going to have a line of demarcation. Even though we put the same color, same level, same tone of color that was on her hair to start with, we can't go back because that color that we put on there is going to fade off. And as her hair grows out, yay far, that closest to the scalp is going to be her natural color, and this is going to be lighter. That's another reason why these colors, you will often notice, become lighter in the summer and leaves the ends even lighter. So you want to be real particular about that before you put anything on a client, that they understand that this is a permanent thing. If y'all have noticed when clients come in here and ask about hair color, I always advise to pull it through the cap or foil it and not to put it on all over. That's why. It's not so hard to get rid of as you let it grow out if you haven't put it all over. But if you put it all over, that's what you're going to live with. That's a place we can go back to our semi-permanent color, though. Wouldn't that be a good way to get rid of that line of demarcation? Just keep putting that semi-permanent color on there because there's no chemical change until they live through it. But if we've lightened, we don't have that option. Now, how many of you know what on-scalp application means or what off-the-scalp application means? So what is off scalp then?
When you do fulls, you don't place the color directly on your scalp.
That's right. That means there is a barrier when color says it's off scalp or for off scalp application. That means we have some type of barrier between the scalp and that product. Foils will sometimes bleed on the scalp, so they're not totally safe. A cap, if it's brand new and we put it on this client, it's going to be off scalp application. The reason I'm calling your attention to this, if you're using a permanent type hair color, you're going to have to do a patch test on the client 24 to 48 hours before this color is applied to them. You should also do this with most semi-permanent if it contains aniline derivative. So I want to give you a little history here, or I want to pull your leg, one or the other, and I'm going to let you decide which. The reason for this is when color was first discovered, or people wanted color, was way back in the days with the fur trappers and the fur coats. And the little rich ladies over in England had their fur coats, and only the very most well-to-do could get them. But after they got the fur coats and had had them a few years, they were dissatisfied with the color of them. So they wanted somebody to learn to change the color. And people began to experiment around with different things, leaves and flowers and all this stuff that had coloring matter in them. And finally they came up with one that would color these furs. And they began to dye the fur coats in America and send them back over to England. And it was a long time before they made this connection, and a lot of lives later, but women began to die. And the way they made the connection is all the women that were dying, other than of natural causes, had a fur coat. Several of the women, or a lot of the women, began to get sick. They did not die, but they got just terribly ill from it. And it was discovered that arsenic was the plant that was being mixed to dye these furs. And that's where aniline derivative first came from. Is that true, or is that just more of me messing with you?
True.
You think so? How many of y'all think it's true? That is so true. Now, these aniline derivatives come from a coal tar product, C-O-A-L, just like what you think I'm saying. But they do have an allergic reaction to certain individuals now. And an allergic reaction, if you've applied this hair color on their scalp, what happens to their head? It's going to be all over their head, but what's going to happen as they have an allergic reaction? It's going to get red and itchy and all that, but that doesn't disturb us so much. What is the part that disturbs us the worst?
Their brains under there.
Their brain's under there. Well, they're not going to have time to worry about their brain because it's going to cause their head to swell. So what's going to happen during that swelling? What else is going to swell? No, it hadn't got down to their brain unless we put it on somebody that's got open wounds. But what is going to swell? What's going to happen when our eyes swell? We can't see. That's no big deal. Somebody can lead us around.
Can't breathe.
Can't breathe. Is that a big deal?
Yeah.
It's going to be a big deal. So we want to test these clients for an allergic reaction. That's why I want to concentrate on off the scalp application. We don't have to worry about it because it's not going to come in contact. But when we're doing on the scalp application, anything that contains an aniline derivative, we need to do that patch test. We need to use the actual color. Believe this or not, with MSDS sheets, I can only get about 3 or 4 colors on one sheet. Every one of them changes because they got a little different ingredients because it's a different shade or level or tone, different things in them. So we have to get a different MSDS sheet for it. So make sure you use the exact formula. Mix it up with the hydrogen peroxide if it's permanent color. Put a little bit right here or a little bit right here. And now companies realize that people don't like this coming 24 to 48 hours ahead of time. They got to go to the beauty shop and wait on you to mix it up. They're having little test kits that you can give your client the week before she gets the color, and she can do it at home. But ask her to let you remove it so that you can look. And you can expect a little discoloration because that hair color product's been there. That hydrogen peroxide is a softening agent, so it's going to be softening that a little bit, and it's going to be let a little bit of that color penetrate. So you can expect a little discoloration, but if you see any redness, swelling, rash, or anything like that, do not apply that color to that client, because you could run into some big time problems when you apply it all over. There's a lot different than putting a little bit here, a little bit here, than they are covering the head with it. Alright, so that's your aniline derivatives. I like permanent hair color better than anything else because we can go in and foil in 2 or 3 different colors. We can do an all-over color. We can expect whatever we're shooting for when we use them, if we choose the correct hydrogen peroxide. So I want to explain to you about volume and percent. Do y'all remember back from first quarter when we talked about solutions? All right, so much of one thing dissolved in another. With hydrogen peroxide, we usually want to get it by volume rather than percent. But if something happens and we don't get the volume, 10 volume, which is for deposit only, because it only has that one level of lift, 10 volume has 3%, is a 3% solution, meaning it contains 3% solute, 97% solution. Now watch as we go along. 20 volume contains 6% solute, 94% solution. Y'all getting the picture? 30 volume contains 9% solute, 91% solvent. 40 volume contains 12% solute, 88% solution. So this is a lot stronger chemical now when we get to 40 volume. So we know what that means, how much solute, and usually our solvent is water. Remember water being the universal solvent. So what does volume mean then? Volume is the amount of oxygen gas that the solution is capable of giving up. 10 volume means it is capable of giving up 10 times its own weight in oxygen gas. 20 volume means it's capable of giving up 20 times its own volume or capacity in oxygen gas. 30 volume means it's capable of giving up 30 times, and 40 times. So we get a lot stronger. We can expect a lot more chemical reaction. We can expect a lot more damage to the hair that we use that on. So we want to be careful and use what we have to get the result we want, but no more than we have to. If we're doing a lot of lightening, we've got to use 40 volume. All right, y'all understand about volume and percent? And the reason I called your attention to the percent is sometime when we start handling our hydrogen peroxide bottles, as we've seen back here, they get dirty, or we get some on the bottle and it takes it off. You don't have to have the volume on there if you know what the percent is and it's still there, because we know 3% is 10, 6% is 20, and right on up the line. But did you see how much stronger it got? This gets up really high. They bleach cloth with hydrogen peroxide in a lot of plants, and a splatter of it will take your skin color off before you can wash it off. If you've got water right there before you can get it off, it'll take your skin color out. It will cause one heck of a burn on an individual. So that's what our volume and our percent is. Now, we've talked about aniline derivative dyes so far. Let's talk about our natural and vegetable dyes. And these are something we do not use professionally anymore, but we need to understand a little bit about them, because people still go and buy them and put them on their hair. When we use these, it renders their hair unfit for any type of chemical service in our salon. We cannot perm that hair. We cannot color that hair. We've got to use a color remover, and we'll get into that in corrective hair color. Our natural or vegetable hair colors are henna, and they're derived from things that are natural. But remember, so was the first permanent hair color. It was derived from arsenic. You know, so natural is not always good. There is no lightening of the natural hair coloring, and this is a coating type permanent hair color. It will coat one right on top of the other. The shades are not very good in this. I don't know why people would want to use it, but if a client comes to you and you suspect that they have it on there, then you need to do a little test strands with remover and see what's left when you remove it. And we have our metallic hair colors. Metallic hair colors have some metal salts in them, ground up in it. And for men only is about the only thing on the market now that people can buy that is metallic. And with certain types of metallics, and when we go into special problems, we'll study this a little more. But with certain types of metal, if they have a metallic hair dye on their hair and we apply one of these others, the hair will begin to boil. Just like a pot on the stove. It'll start to boil and give off a disagreeable odor. The way you tell or the way you suspect that somebody has metallic dyes on there is always going to be a strange, dull color, because it coats one time on top of the other. The hair is going to feel pretty much like dried corn shucks, if you've ever felt that, real dry and brittle. Those unusual colors are going to be like an ugly lavender, ugly dull lavender, ugly dull avocado green, ugly dry orange. If you get a client that comes in like that and wants color or a permanent wave, cut out about 20 strands of their hair and dip it into a solution of ammonia water and hydrogen peroxide and see what the reaction is. You know, you can expect natural hair color to lighten quickly in that solution because hydrogen peroxide removes color. But if it takes some other reaction, if it doesn't do anything, then there's a good chance there's some on there when you first put it in. If it begins to boil and smell disagreeable, then you know you don't want to apply your products on there. All right, questions? Y'all got it? Y'all ready to color? Very good.